Welcome back, and Blart says hi. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're taking a look at Chapter 2D, the quadratic formula, and this is the last skill set that we need for our test coming up. We will be spending some time and putting it into applications after this on Monday, and then for Cohort A and Cohort B, your test dates are on the LMS, so take a look at that. Okay, so this is the package we want to work on today and finish this up. And to do that, I need to talk to you a little bit about the quadratic formula. Those of you coming from grade 10 academic, you know this already. Those of you coming from grade 10 applied, this is going to be a bit new. So we're going to have to get through that. You're going to have a little bit extra to do compared to some of the other kids that have seen this. So the quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula is a formula for quadratics. Now, what's a quadratic? A quadratic is any expression that's going to have a degree of 2 as its highest power. So this is a quadratic. It's also what we call a trinomial. This is a quadratic. It's a binomial. This is a quadratic. As a graph, we call them all parabolas. As a graph or a picture. As an equation, we call them quadratics. And what do they all have in common? This x squared term. And that has to be the highest degree. And what I mean by that, if they had something like maybe x to the 3, that's no longer a quadratic. We call that a cubic. And if it doesn't have an x squared, if they only have the x to the 1, then that's linear. This is quadratic. And mainly grade 10 focused on quadratics, and so is quite a bit of your grade 11 course at the moment. Okay, so the quadratic formula works for all quadratics. So the general form for every quadratic is to write it like this, where a, b, and c are going to be numbers. And the one above, I've got a is 3, b is 5, and c is 1. Now, when the quadratic formula is set equal to 0. So when, and this has to be true, y equals 0, so it's going to look like this now. We can use the quadratic formula to determine the values of x that make this true. So in the past, we've been able to find the values of x that made this true by factoring and then solving. In this case, we can do it using the formula. This is the formula. X equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over top of 2a. That is the formula. You must memorize it. So a is this number, b is this number, and c is this number. And this is the formula. It's a good idea to get this tattooed on you somewhere, you know. Go to mom and dad and say, Ma, I need a tattoo. This is what it is, and I'm going to be cool. All right, so let's talk for a minute about what this thing is. That is a plus or minus, and what that means is that this formula actually represents two cases. There's case 1, and that's where it's going to be x equals minus b plus square root b squared minus 4ac over top of 2a. And then there's case 2, and that's where you're going to get x equals minus b minus square root b squared minus 4ac over top of 2a. A couple of things to keep in mind here. See how my square root goes all the way to the end, and I put a little symbol like that on it so that everything in here stays under it. A square root sign that doesn't go all the way to the end is going to lose your marks. Notice that my division sign goes all the way, shows everything on top with the 2a on the bottom. A division sign that's missing the negative b over top of it is no good, okay? So a couple of things just to reiterate. So if I had something that looked like this, x equals plus 3 and negative 3, that's a great way to write it. But if I really want to be cool, if I really want to be one of the cool kids, we're going to write it like that. So that's how all the cool kids write that these days. So if I have negative b plus or minus, that means both cases. One where it's plus and one where it's minus. The other thing to keep in mind when you're doing this, if I have a number that's underneath the square root sign, let's just say that, you want to get that square root sign all the way down so it includes everything. And then your division sign all the way across so it includes everything. Okay? All the way across, so everything on top is on that line. All right, we'll stop there and we'll come right back.